people, I'm telling you, Danny, there are people who are going to come into your life, and as determined as you are to not fulfill your destiny, they are there to believe in you past your own belief in yourself. And you can catch up to them because they see the whole thing.
Someone cares about you.
There's a reason why your heart is beating.
You still have a purpose.
Don't give up.
It's important to know that you're not alone.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
You are not alone.
Going for a walk every day has so many great perks, not just for your body, but also for your mind. It can help you relax, manage stress, boost your mood, and even lower the risk of depression. So as you're getting ready for your walk today, I'm glad that you're joining us for our chat with today's guest, Air Force veteran Charlynda Scales. With over 15 years of service, Charlynda is a serial entrepreneur, military veteran, sought-after speaker, and board member of multiple organizations. She's the founder and CEO of Mutt's Sauce and O Taste LLC, with features in major media outlets. Plus, she started her company while serving in the military. She also has an impressive educational background with an MBA in strategic leadership and a degree in aerospace science and business management. Oh, and her son David is her pride and joy. Charlynda, thank you so much for joining us on the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited, Danny.
Absolutely. Well, as our listeners start their Strava app to begin their virtual walk, I'd love to hear about your childhood and what inspired you to join the Air Force in the first place.
Absolutely. So I am a country girl from the hills of Tennessee, Cookeville, Tennessee, to be exact. And I grew up in a multi-generational home. So it was my mother, my aunt and her 2 boys, and my grandparents, of which my grandfather was a Korean Vietnam War veteran, and my grandmother was a nurse and military spouse of over 30 years. So I had a great childhood. It was filled with wonderful memories in the countryside, listening to war stories from my granddad, picking blackberries, rough housing with my cousins, the 2 boys. And I had a good, I would say there's adversity to be had. Of course, my background culturally is I was actually I'm Nigerian and American by heritage. So my mom married a Nigerian immigrant who was here on an education visa. And so my maiden name is Nigerian. And when you live in the middle of Tennessee with a Nigerian name, it makes for an interesting and challenging childhood, but you won all the spelling bees.
With that legacy, with that maiden name, as you were mentioning, living in the hills of Tennessee, what was it that made you want to continue the legacy and expand the military family moving forward?
Well, my grandfather was an aircraft technician. He was an aircraft mechanic during Korea and Vietnam, and I would listen to his stories of service. We have every single branch except for the Coast Guard and the Space Force. We're still recruiting. It's okay. So we've represented all of those branches. Plus, I'm a 4th generation veteran. So 4 generations of my family have served. And by that point, it's the conversation at the dinner table is, what school you want to go to, but more importantly, what branch are you going to serve in? So there's always one person in each generation that served. And for my generation, my older cousin went into the Marine Corps. Unfortunately, he got hurt. And that old school mentality from the war, my granddad was like, okay, who's next? So it became, love my cousin Carlos, but Carlos was like, that's not for me. And so then it came down to my turn. And I can't say, Danny, that it was something that I woke up as a kid and was like, I want to go into the Air Force. I had actually filled out the Reserve Officer Training Corps application, scholarship application in the back of a math class I was not paying attention to. And I wanted to play sports. I was a jock. My future was to either run track or play soccer. tore my ACL first game senior year. So all my sports scholarships were gone overnight, any potential money there. So I, in boredom, filled out this ROTC scholarship application that another kid was filling out and gave up on, and passed my guidance counselor in the hallway. She said, "What is that? Come out of your fog of depression." And I said, some application, I don't know. She turned it in. And that is my story of how I ended up in the world's greatest Air Force, because I ended up getting a full ride to the college of my choice from that moment.
That's incredible. And what a way to pivot. Like, obviously going forward with your sports scholarship, knowing that, you have this legacy, filling out that package, getting your full ride into the Air Force, which is not an easy thing to do by any means. So congratulations. Like, if somebody hasn't told you recently, you're amazing. And thank you for that tremendous contribution. Where did your Air Force career end up taking you after you finished school?
So I went to Clemson, and I studied the business management, aerospace science. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do in the military at first. I eventually settled on an intel. I want to do intel or something super secret spy. I was like, I want to be a detective or whatever, OSI, Office of Special Investigations. And they said, no, you have a business degree. You're going to be an acquisitions officer. You're going to be a program manager. And I don't think that it had the street cred yet. So nobody really knew what that was. And so you just got labeled as a chairborne ranger because you're like, you're going to work in an office. And I was like, that's not dangerous. That's not fun. Like, what do you mean? Like, you're going to do contracts. You're going to negotiate with people like Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin and procure the latest and greatest capabilities for the United States Air Force so we can maintain our global superiority and air superiority. I'm like, fantastic. Not. So I had to learn to love it because I had to understand it first to appreciate it. My first base was Robins Air Force Base in Georgia. I worked C-130 contract. I was Air Force small arms, so your handguns and grenades and pistols, F-16, F-15 aircraft logistics. And so I worked all those things the first assignment. So at this point, it's kind of overwhelming because you're still in your 20s. And when you start on day one, they don't care. They don't care where you came from. They don't care what your background is. They don't even care if you believe in yourself because your uniform means that you can do it. Yes,
it does.
You just get in there. So it's like you just get in there and you do it. And, it has its challenges. I think thrusting a lot of responsibility on someone at that age does have its downside. Like, there was 2008. So I was the program manager for the California wildfires, the one that was, I guess, the famous wildfire where Governor Schwarzenegger was like, California's burning down. We can't put it out. Call in federal support. I was like 25, somewhere like what are most 25-year-olds doing? Not saving California from burning down, that's for sure. Yes. And so experiences like that, once you do a job like that, they just kind of, the reward for good work is more work. So the next few assignments were intel related, can never talk about those. But then I went up to Hanscom Air Force Base in Massachusetts, work with security forces troops to help them translate some of their requirements into tangible things they could use out in the field. Staff tour with a 3-star general, then my last duty station at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, where I worked on the T-6 trainer aircraft, so the aircraft that all the pilots train on when they're brand spanking new. And then I finished up with Air Force requirements, so working the paperwork that translates into all the things that you see. There's a team that sits there and writes line by line what that capability is. So it was fun.
That's quite an extensive career, and you did a great job of painting a picture of the military testing the mettle of young people. because we are asked to do things that we would not find ourselves in certain positions based upon how we performed in a training environment. Now it's the real life situation, right? You're right there in California, which then of course led to your next job, which you mentioned you weren't able to talk about and you still can't talk about on a public level. How has that growing responsibility in your career and pressures affected you moving forward in life?
I think as military people, the one thing that you'll hear a lot is compartmentalization, that we have to deal with the mission at hand, get it done, and then deal with the emotions of the moment later on, whether that was a quick mission or you were deployed and had to do it for an extended amount of time, or whether it was a mission that you can never talk about, that you had to basically compartmentalize that experience. And the hardest part is physically, mentally, your body has to deal with it. Somehow, it needs to feel like we've done something to reconcile this or to feel better. And the longer that you go denying that natural ability to deal or to heal, that's when I call it like the box springs open, like those Jack in the Boxes, when you're totally not ready. Like, I'm not ready to deal with it. And it could have been something small. And that's where some veterans are misunderstood, because it might have been a sound or a sight or something that just seemed random and minuscule. But for us, it was a triggering thing that opened up a box that's been closed for years. And but we know what it was, but nobody else can see that. So for me, I dealt with a lot of things after I left. I got really sick in the intel assignment, and they couldn't figure out the origin of it. Was it just natural food poisoning? Was I poisoned? Was it, what was it? But there were so many things that it could have been, and leaving that situation, still you're out of the environment, but still dealing with the sickness and nobody can give you answers. It made me really kind of paranoid for a while, untrusting of strange places. I'm definitely not the person who will eat at a potluck. So, that's a lot when you're trying to just perform day to day, and those things that you deal with, no one can see it. So they don't understand why you're acting, why are you acting like something's wrong with you? You look fine.
Absolutely. And I know that you've been slowly opening up more and more about some of these experiences in what you can and cannot share. But during the time in your military career, I know for myself, coming back and knowing that there were some things lingering from a deployment or from some actions, talking about it was not really an option, especially if I wanted to continue to move forward in my career. Was the same true for you?
Yes, I vividly remember, and I'd been through so many treatments. I think even the doctors were getting frustrated with not finding the answer. And so they're like, why don't we just say this is PTSD so you can get the credit and we can be done? Just claim PTSD. Let me write this in your record. And because I was still active duty and we still had this stigma attached to it when I was in the service of, if you want to promote, there can be nothing wrong with you. And the position that I was in was you have to be flawless forevermore. Since the job in when you were in the 2008 California wildfires, you're on the flawless track. And so that for me was like, I have to deny the one thing that I naturally need, which is genuine help physically to get through day to day. It's hard when you're working 12-hour days and you can't hold down water, when you are so hungry and dehydrated that you almost feel like your blood is stuck in your veins. Like it will not flow. And, I would cry looking at a glass of water saying my only goal today is to drink the glass of water. How much medicine do I have to take so I can drink this glass of water and make it to tomorrow because we have meetings? So, yeah, to go through all of that and to have them say, just put this down so we can be done with it. And knowing that I'm not done with it because I still don't feel good, was trauma in itself. Knowing that you are going to deny self-care just so you can get to the next assignment that's harder than the last and do well.
How did you begin addressing that? I mean, while you were still on active duty, doing your job, you also managed to start your business and get these things going. What was kind of the motivation to start entrepreneurship while on active duty and dealing with these things?
Yeah. So if you look at the timeline of when I first got ill, it was like 2010, and I didn't start Mutt sauce until 2013 on paper, 2014 operationally. So it became Medicate to Survive. The medication that they gave me is what they normally give to pregnant women with severe morning sickness or cancer patients. So that is the level of medication that I've been on since 2010.
Wow. And with that medication, I mean, I've been on too many medications for various mental health issues, and now I'm so involved in personal care and self care that I'm able to limit how much medication I'm on and still kind of run our business in a way that we want to run. So how did you begin finding some balance and getting Mutt sauce going?
Yeah, well, when I first started trying to heal myself, I was looking for natural ways, listening to holistic folks, honestly, of how I can stretch the time in between when I would need it. Now I would say that I'm mostly unmedicated, but I will always be on it to make sure that I don't have any big relapse of any kind, health wise. But I mainly just keep it around. It's almost like a security blanket at this point. You're praying to God you never need it, but I will always have it just in case. And now I just have to look at what I eat, what I drink, and don't put myself. Unfortunately, the social aspect of it, it's kind of bred into anxiety because I don't like social situations where I don't like social situations where there's food involved, or food that I can't see the whole process of how it was made. And that sucks because talking to them, they were trying to say, do you have a bad relationship with food? I was like, yeah, I miss it. I freaking love food. I come from a family that just made sauce and we ate. Like, this is the most painful part, is the not having the freedom to do what I want to do. But for me, kind of overriding that my personal feelings were not so much involved in what I do with the sauce. So my grandfather made this sauce in 1956, and he was very passionate about bringing people together. And when you look at businesses, when someone starts a business, especially if it's product based, it's not even about the product. If you really want to make an impact, the actual product comes last. It is the story behind why you wanted to start the business. It is the impact that you want to make with it. So if you're selling tickets to Disney World, you're not selling rides, you're selling happy memories. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm selling family togetherness. And so that was important to me to replicate what he was able to do with bringing people together during a time when we were basically segregated as a country. But if you look at pictures of him throwing backyard barbecues, everyone looks different, but everyone's having a good time and everyone has the sauce. So I was like, if he could do that in the 50s, surely I can do that now. And that was what drove me. And there was a moment my mother gave me an envelope that had the original recipe in it after I told her I was eating something and it sucked because I'm a bad cook. And I know that if I put the sauce on it, then it'll be okay. So it was a simple request. It was 8 years after he had passed. My grandfather passed a year after I commissioned. He was actually the first person to salute me on active duty. He fought stage 4 cancer for 4 years while I was in college at Clemson. And I tell myself he fought that beast just for that moment. And that's why I'm so grateful that we had that moment of the silver dollar salute. You can't put a price on that. There's nothing that could happen in the rest of my life besides the birth of my son that could top it, So I wanted to pay my respects to someone who was my father figure. I'm glad I took the leap of faith. Can't say I know what I'm doing even 10 years later. I often feel like I'm winging it, Danny. But it's rewarding.
So I currently have chicken skin, Charlynda, because you brought up so many different aspects of what was going on in your life, what was going on in your mind that brought about the fruition of you working, running a business that operates in the food industry, from your trauma to the social aspect, to the breaking down of barriers in the 1950s to say, hey, if this could be done then, imagine what can be done now. Like, let's not face the fact that you're a 4th generation military legacy, but the fact that you went to a university on a scholarship to then serve in the military, given the background, and your grandfather got to see that and salute that and celebrate that. And, if there's one thing that I've learned in life is that we are all kind of winging it. I'm now the age that my parents were when they started becoming grandparents. And it baffles my mind how little I know and how little they must have known, but they still moved forward, right? And so that's what you continue to do, is move forward. In your book, you talk about the importance of these relationships and mentorships. And I'm really curious, as you're going through these ups and downs and the trampoline of it all, how had mentorship played a role in being able to overcome some of these challenges?
Yeah, I really feel like I'm just a product of great mentors. My grandfather used to say, if you close your mouth and open your ears, you'll learn a thing or two. And it seems simple, right? But truly, I feel like people are put in your life for a reason. And wisdom comes when you realize the powerful reason why they were there. Like, it was not what you thought it was. It is something way bigger than you can conceive. And for me, I Googled free help because I needed some kind of help. I have this recipe, this piece of paper. I don't know what to do with it. And my thought initially was, I'm going to make a couple of bottles for friends and family. I'm going to learn how to can 10 bottles. And I'm going to go to Score, SCORE, score.org. And I'm going to go to this place that has free mentorship that Google has given me. And they're going to give me the steps to can something tomato base. Well, I got one I bargained for, because my mentor, his name was John Suter. He is still here with us. He was the same age as my granddad. So he heard this, and he was a retired executive. He had manufacturing companies he had exited, and was just, he had time to just give people free advice. And he heard my story, and he said, I think what happened was your grandfather had a lot that he wanted to do, and he loved his family. He just ran out of time. And then when I heard that, I was like, that was very sobering, because I'm like, he visualized it like a baton, being handed a baton. Like, I'm sorry, I'm out of breath, I'm out of time. Here, kiddo, take it home. So the way that he repackaged this from 10 bottles to this is a consumer packaged good that is going to be sold in grocery stores or anywhere where food is sold. This is going to take care of generations of your family if you want. This is going to provide jobs. And so he just kept going on. And all of a sudden it was like, this is 10 bottles, dude. Like, oh my God. Like, now let me tell him that I am active duty. So this cannot happen. And so even when I kept throwing up barriers, like, this is why this can't work. He's like, this is why it can. So I just,
like a true mentor.
there are people, I'm telling you, Danny, there are people who are going to come into your life, and as determined as you are to not fulfill your destiny, they are there to believe in you past your own belief in yourself. And you can catch up to them because they see the whole thing. They see the vision. You don't even see it yet. They see it. And you just have to hang on. You just have to hang on. And I really just felt like I was hanging on to whatever John told me to do. I didn't see it yet. I just followed the instructions until finally it started to click. And I have to say that still was not for a couple of years, but I was on Shark Tank. So I ran into I call them like-hearted people. There are people who may not agree with you. They're not going to tell you what you like to hear. They're not going to pat you on the back and coddle you, but they have the same values. They care about you and they want something great for you. They see something great in you. And I went to a conference, and this young woman who, I botched a pitch competition, and she said, hey, you might have screwed that up. Guess what? Shark Tank is in the building and you need to go down there. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to make it. She's like, you need to go out there and get a bracelet. You stand in that line, you're probably number 500. And next thing I know, I get the bracelet and I get a phone call. And she said, if you get a phone call, you give me a call on my cell phone and I'll tell you what's next. So she had coached people through Shark Tank before, and her prices for consulting were very high. But she said she had a vested interest. She didn't know what it was, but she was very interested in making sure that I made it to the finish line. And I did because of her. Listen to her. So I don't seek out these people. And I think that's the discussion on mentorship is like a lot of times your mentor sees you. You don't go up to a person and say, be my mentor. They notice something in you and have taken a vested interest in your development. And they not only just see you, they usually see you as a person, your life, what is going on with you. John was talking about your father, your grandfather, and his vision for the family and his belief in you. This lady, Jacqueline, this product is going on Shark Tank. I can see it. You can't see it, but I do. So I'm going to get you there. And when I got to Shark Tank, I got rejected, epically rejected. So throughout the time, and I guess the biggest one, the example I use in the book was I wanted to pitch to Damon John. They said, pick a shark in your mind. Who would be like the easiest person to talk to would understand? Damon John, single, raised by a single mother, sold T-shirts out of the back of his car with four co-founders, has been through the ringer, hung in there, and he'll get it. As soon as I showed up to California, who's not here? Damon. I was so dejected. Before I could even walk in there, I was just really defeated. We can talk about that. But 4 years later, after getting rejected, and it was the last day of the Bob Evans Heroes of CEOs contest, I got notified that I had won and that my mentor was Damon John. And I didn't even tell him when I met him. I probably just looked like a maniac sitting across from him with my eyes really big, with my jaw to the floor, because he had no idea. He had no idea the 4 years that I had been through fighting past that rejection moment and not letting that define me and saying someday I'll have a breakthrough. And then you find yourself almost like a blink moment sitting in an empty room with 2 chairs across from Damon saying, what would you like to know?
That's incredible. And just goes to show that everything in its proper time, as long as you're still continuing to navigate forward in your mission. And can you just share how you managed to navigate through those business and personal challenges? You mentioned your mentor at the time from SCORE was trying to get you to grow this business, and you're just like throwing up the walls. I'm active duty. I can't do it. I don't have the time. This is never going to be like, this isn't my recipe. This is my grandfather's thing. We need to keep it small and manageable for my life. But you continued moving forward. You continued doing the work to become who you are today. Would you mind just kind of talking about like that navigation process and even that pivotal moment that happened where you're at the top of the mountain, at least so you thought, and at the bottom of the valley at the same time, and how you navigated through that?
Oh, yeah. So, rock bottom is not a thing you can avoid. It's not something on the journey where you're like, how do I navigate entrepreneurship without ever hitting my face on the ground? Like, you're going to do it. Even if you live regular life, you're going to hit rock bottom. And that's the part, the most important part of the entrepreneurship journey that I would want any person who takes on this mantle that says, I'm going to do this. You still have a life. You're still a person living life. And your life will be ebb and flowing in and out of your entrepreneur professional life. There's no way to avoid it. So whether you get sick, whether you have a bad business partner, whether someone close to you passes away, whether your kids are impacting your life, whether you end up getting a divorce, all of these things will happen on the journey. And for me, it was accepting that I'd already had a life of adversity. I'd already been through a lot just to get into my uniform on active duty, start this business. I really felt like, what else? Like if you'd been through a lot by that point, you kind of have this mentality of like, I will just deal with it. Whatever it is, we'll just deal with it and move on to the next thing. Now, as much as I didn't agree with John helped give me practical tips. So it wasn't just, this is going to be everywhere. It is, you need to make a decision, because the most important thing you have is your time. And if your time commitment is the military, then we need to figure out how you're not in some kitchen somewhere with a ladle and a bonnet. And so that ended up being, you're not going to start out in the cottage level like most food entrepreneurs. You're going to skip even commercial kitchens, because even in commercial kitchens, food entrepreneurs go in like they would in an office and they make their stuff every day and they sell it out from the kitchen. You have to go even one step further and you have to find a manufacturer. That is the only way you're going to be able to, shrug off my whole, I'm not getting out of the military thing and still make this happen. But it came with the sacrifice. No arising to the next level is going to come without some level of sacrifice and some level of discomfort. Now, for me, that was, I have no financial literacy and I wanted to buy a BMW with all my savings from the military, because in my mind, when you don't have money, a Beamer is happiness. Okay. A BMW is making it. So I said, if I ever, pray to God, if I ever make major, I'm going to walk into a BMW dealership. I'm going to pay for it with cash. I'm going to roll out. And so that to me was the sacrifice that I have to make, because I don't know what this could be. I could give $25,000 to a manufacturer and they totally screw this up. And I'm sitting here with crates of sauce that people hate, because nobody's tried it except for my family. He said, I don't think you come this far just to come this far. So, you work this out, you and whoever you believe in, you come back with that money. So the next meeting was going to be, find the manufacturer. And so I think he was sensing my hesitation. So he gave me a peer mentor, a lady who had been a salsa company owner. And she said, the process is all the same. I've been in this area for a long time. And get this, she said, I've been praying for someone to pass along this knowledge to, because I've been in this industry so long. I know every manufacturer here. I know every packaging person in this state. And I have a whole Rolodex, and I'm really tired, and I just want to pass this on to somebody. So if you're willing to listen, I will download it to you. And that's what she did. And so when John said we move at the speed of determination, that meant however determined you are to make this happen. The story of Mutt sauce is because in the manufacturing world is freakish, because from start, the concept to the first production, bottle, label, nutrition facts, barcode, everything. I could go into an H-E-B or Kroger with what I had 4 months as a startup. It takes most people like a year just to do formulation. So,
Yeah.
but that's what happens when you override the fear and just go for it. You know, it's not always going to land great. And there was a lot of failure in there, but you just kind of dust yourself off and you keep going. I had to learn the hard way about net payments. You have operations bills, and people don't have to pay you for 60 to 90 days. Didn't know that. So I'm out there just spending money like it's air. Wow, I made all this sauce money. And I had a moment where I was $1,500 in the hole, like opening my bank account, negative $1,500. That happened. Yeah, there's so many things. I mean, but, and then personally, we talk about the high highs, usually this disparity in when things can look really good and they're actually really bad. That was the part, Brunella Castiglia, I wanted to say her name right. She is the owner of the Military Editor Agency. She is my ghostwriter. She helped me tell my story. And it was a long process. It was very painful. And I was, again, like the thing with John, she's like, I see this. You really need to go here because there's things that people need to connect to. And the one thing I didn't want to talk about was my divorce, because I internalized that so much that it took me to places that like I had not emotionally, mentally ever been that low. And the hardest part about it was a week after winning Bob Evans, when I'm one of the luckiest entrepreneurs in the country, because this contest had never happened in this format before, where they just give you a check for $25,000 and give you a one-on-one with Damon John with no strings attached, only for 3 veterans in the entire nation. So you can imagine what it was like when the PR company's like, you got this interview, you got the podcast, you got the video, you got, going on the news. And aren't you so happy? And every interview is like, I'm so happy I'm blessed. This is the greatest thing. And then inside, you're just like, do not talk about being a military spouse. Avoid talking about your husband. Skip that whole thing. Keep smiling. Don't cry. Don't cry. Don't cry. And it was that quick. It was that quick that I was at the event saying that I was the most blessed, luckiest person, was with my best friend. And I wouldn't have made it to this point without the support of the whole family, his family, my family, and getting a random phone call that for me was like, this is a non-negotiable. This isn't even real. I feel like I took the wrong biscuit or something. This is Alice in Wonderland. What is this? This is not even a real marriage. It's fake. That was like, this isn't even real. So I can't stay in something that's not real. And as much as I want it to be, to stay would be a disrespect to myself. I felt like it would be disrespectful to the person who called me, who basically they were doing a Hail Mary too, like, help me. And And I had to make the split decision of leave your life that you've had for a decade. And I when I left, there was shame. And it was weird because like I still felt like shame of giving up. And what do I tell people? And when I was in this apartment, I found an apartment and I had just accepted a job at the Federal Aviation Administration headquarters, which was a high salary job, but came again. You did such a great job on active duty. We want to give you an insane level of responsibility while you are running a company that just won a national award in a different state, because I'm in Washington, D.C. So I was trying to manage all of that. I got to an apartment, couldn't afford to put furniture in it because the rent was $2,000 a month for the tiny apartment. And I sold a cot from the garage on my way out. So I was sleeping on that for 4 months. And that was my existence. And I don't know how to really tell people how to pull yourself out of that, other than in that moment, I found purpose and I found peace at rock bottom. I thought I'd experienced rock bottom, but that to me was like, this is it. Like, I just need to stay here on earth. I just need to stay. And I had a conversation with my mom candidly. I'm like, I love you and I need a good reason why I'm here because this sucks. And she said, well, I know I can't tell you how you're feeling right now. I don't know that feeling, honestly. But if you don't feel like you're supposed to be part of tomorrow, I need you to do me a favor. And it was like the middle of the day. And I said, what? She's like, I want you to go take a nap. I want you to go lay down. If you have to take a hot shower, you should go lay down. Shut the windows if you have to. And I want you to sleep as long as your body can possibly sleep. And I was like, what is the point of that? She said, because when you wake up, you're wrong. If you are convinced you're not supposed to be part of tomorrow, and when you wake up and you're part of tomorrow, you're going to look like boo-boo-boo because you were wrong. You were supposed to be here. And I was like, what? Like, that is your genius? Like, right now? And she said, and every time you feel like that, I want you to shut it all down and lay down. Shut it all down and lay down. And she's like, and each day that you start putting this in the rearview mirror, this pain, she's like, you're going to have a day where you're going to wake up and it's not going to hurt. Like you're going to be able to start your day and finish your day. And today will be a good day. And you will actually make it through the day without crying. And you might even do something that makes you smile. And she's like, and when that day happens, please call me. Call me and tell me you're having a good day. So it was weird because I was in anticipation of this day. Like I found myself being like, is today the day? Like, is today the good day? I don't know. Maybe I should go to TJ Maxx. I don't know what I need to do. But I did. I got to that day, and there was a history behind that too, because there was a lot of things going on in my marriage that I didn't want to accept the reality of, which is I could wake up and be perfectly fine and be crying myself to sleep by that evening for something that was totally out of my control. Like I don't wake up and with the goal of hurting me emotionally. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't wake up with that, but to go to sleep with that pain on so many occasions I couldn't really count anymore. She said, one day you're going to be able to wake up and have a good day, and the day will be a good day. And that, when you're in the empty apartment, you can do two things. You can sit there, and I heard this quote that said, rock bottom has a basement. And I'm like, how depressing is that? There's no hope there. That's like when you're at the bottom, it's darkness, but it's not. Rock bottom is not a place you go and stay. Rock bottom is a moment that's supposed to tell you something. Maybe there's too much noise. Maybe there's too much chaos. Maybe, chaos in here, chaos around. And rock bottom is almost like that moment where you're just like, everything stop. Okay. Just stop. And in that empty apartment, there was no sound. Unless I was talking to myself, no sound. I was able to think clearly without hearing any other thoughts, anyone talking at me. Another thing that happened during that moment, I got a call from an editor of the Military Spouse magazine, and she said, "Congratulations, you're going to make the cover of Military Spouse magazine." And I thought I misheard her. I prayed that I misheard her because I was probably a couple days in that apartment at that point. This was like in a really bad moment. And that's where the title of my book comes from, because in that rock bottom moment, she said, "This is bigger than you." And then the hardest part is when you're feeling the way you do and someone's saying that it's not about you. I was like, oh, that hurt me. This hurts so bad, because I'm like, I failed. I don't want to hear anything else other than the negativity right now. I need to feed off of that. And she's like, "I'm not here to give that to you. I'm here to uplift you and tell you that you have a purpose bigger than whatever you're dealing with right now, that there are women who are entrepreneurs. They are not just holding up signs at airports anymore, waiting. That's not their story as a military spouse. On top of that, military spouses are men now. I mean, they've been men for a long time, but we need to highlight the fact that there are men who are supportive of military women going out there and fighting in, OCONA's combat situations. And they're just as supportive as the women. And they're taking care of kids too. And they're not just sitting around twiddling their fingers. They are active members of the community, and they're having to adapt every base that they go to. We want to recognize these people, and we want them to be seen. And the way that you are seen is by providing them with an example of not the status quo. And I'm trying to tell you to put the Jack Daniels down and be the person. And I was like, oh my God. So, there's what the sender sends out, and there's what the receiver receives. And what I received was, if you believe in something bigger than yourself, then rock bottom has a trampoline. If you don't think that it's just you down there at rock bottom, that there are people that love you, there are people who are rooting for you, that you don't know are speaking your names in rooms that you're not sitting in. They believe in you bigger than the belief that you have in yourself. She's like, I need you to harness that. And I need you to come out of this, because I'm putting your face on the cover anyway.
That is so beautiful. And I just want to sit here and listen to you, because your honesty and reflection is so inspiring to our listeners, to me. Just being able to pick out those moments in life where we can see, the deepest of the valleys, the rock bottom, as you will. And if we're just patient enough, if we just wait long enough and do the next right thing, we will spring back like never before. And I know in the beginning of your book, you talked about, if you could only reach one other person through your journey, through rock bottom as a trampoline, it will have all been worth it. And so what is it that gives you the strength and ability to be so open, be so transparent, and really lean into helping the next person at this point?
I think that's probably the most shocking part, is I don't feel strong. I don't feel powerful most of the time. I don't feel worthy most of the time. I'm not confident a lot of the times. And everything that people see, I'm pushing past that inner critic who is constantly in there saying, nope, you can't do this. No, there's what I'm telling myself inside, and I'm overriding it every day. So I'm acting even if I don't believe in me. As I said, I know it sounds like that the one thing I do believe is I do believe it is bigger than me.
Mm.
And I'm not looking for a reward for it. I just know that I've accepted that it's my purpose, that it's not all these things that I have experienced in my life, the good and the bad, they served a purpose. And it's not for some personal gain and personal glory, for me to eventually reach the pinnacle and pat myself on the back. It really was all to give someone else hope, because my dash between the time I arrive and the time that I leave is like a domino. Like, we're one domino in this thing. And I'm just trying to push it forward for the next person. I'm trying to reach that next person so the overall plan can keep going. And if I sit here stagnant, not moving, then you don't see the beautiful pattern of the domino. You don't see everything that could come of it. I don't want to be the person that holds somebody up because they're sitting at rock bottom in the dark and you are literally the light. And it's almost like you're holding a flashlight and refusing to turn it on for them. And I can't live with that.
It's a great illustration. With the ongoing struggles and the tragic suicide rates that exist within our country and within our military and veteran community, what message of hope do you currently have for somebody that is currently struggling?
I just want you to know that you are worthy and you are beautiful. And I know now, being a mother, just how miraculous it is to even be alive on this earth, to be even a situation like my son was born in March 2020. Scary, right? It's a global pandemic. This little thing, as afraid as I could have been as a mom of all the things going on in the world, you could not bring me down from that joy that I had holding that little potato. I mean, he is my everything. And to me, that was like all of the no's that I've been told through life. I went through 10 years of infertility and been told by several doctors that this motherhood thing might not be for you. And to override that, to override the doubt, and it happened. And again, timing, right? I was pushing 40. I walked in and they're like, "You're high risk and geriatric." Like, great. Great. Let's do it. And so you can be fearful through the whole pregnancy, but had zero symptoms. Miracle. I had a tumor in my abdomen. I didn't know about. Would have never known about it. They're like, "There's no reason for you to ever have an ultrasound of your abdomen unless you were pregnant." So my son is the reason why I even knew it was there. He was born with 20 minutes of labor. Every woman on earth can hate me, but it was painless 20 minutes. And and so then the pandemic, you look at life, I was so go, go, go. That was the whole history of my existence. The workhorse who takes every hard job, who never slows down. All my baby gifts were travel gifts because we know you're just going to strap that baby on you and keep going. And the most bittersweet thing is the fact that I got almost 2 years of being at home with my child to soak up all the memories and quality time that I would not have got. I would not have slowed down enough to cherish that very precious moment. So for the people listening out there, I want you to know that there is such a blessing in being able to talk about some of these rock bottom moments in past tense. You know how we talk about what happened to us, but we forget that we're talking about it in past tense? Like, you have made it. You survived it. And that is something that should be celebrated more. And then 2, you don't have to feel qualified to be qualified. Do it, if you're scared, do it anyway. There's so many people out here who are they're not competent. They're just really confident. And that's why they have all the things that you've dreaming of doing, because they're just out here like, I can do that. They can't really, but they do it. Like, they're just doing it and they're consistent. And so you don't have to feel qualified to be qualified to do what you're dreaming of doing. And you are worthy. And you might not internalize that worth, but someone knows and believes with everything in their heart that you are worthy. And if you don't believe it, just hold on to what they believe. And that'll get you there, because it happened to me. It's still happening for me. I'll leave you with that, Danny.
Well said, Charlynda. Where can people find you, connect with you, learn from you, pick up a copy of your book, Rock Bottom Has a Trampoline? Like, where are you?
Hey, well, you can find me at Charlynda Jean, that's JEAN.com. And then from there, I have like all the stuff I'm getting into, my companies, like Mutt Sauce, my foundation, Taste Foundation, and then, all my antics. So on social media, at Charlynda Jean as well. I'm even on TikTok for you TikTokers out there. A little bit of, I don't do the dances. Sorry, don't do the dances, but yeah, you can find me.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast. And it was such an honor chatting with you.
You're amazing, Danny. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Charlynda's inspiring story during your walk today. And don't forget to log your progress on the Strava app and join our virtual walking group, 1 Mile, 1 Veteran, for daily motivation to keep active. And I have some exciting news. The 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast can also be heard on Reese Across America Radio, which is available on iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and the TuneIn app. Thanks for listening.